Welcome, welcome, and thank you. Aloha from Honolulu, Hawaii. My name is Jan Wakefield. These are dimensional talks that we are having. Thank you so much for being here. I brought this group together just briefly so that we can normalize the conversation around our travels from third dimension to fifth dimension and all of the experiences there. Many of you have reached out to me with wonderful questions, and I will always be doing my best to answer the questions in any way that I can. And I'll come on in different capacities. We will have informational talks, and then there will also just be what I call, as a term that we use in Hawaii, talk stories. So I'll share with you some of my experiences. Sometimes we need to hear about how someone else has done something so that we can try to find the way there ourselves. So my inspiration for this was my experience in a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat in June 2024, where I went to Cancun. And in that experience, I had an out of body moment in a meditation that allowed me to see the blue healers that were in the room. I had heard Dr. Joe talk about them, so I was curious to see if that was going to be a reality for me. My background, as many of you know, is that I have been dimensional traveling my entire life since I was a child. And for those of you who have had those experiences, just know that you're not alone. That is normal for many of us. And as I do more and more research, listen to more and more YouTube videos, I am finding that our community of people who have these abilities, it's just expanding. And I think that's probably why I'm bringing forth the information messages now, just based on my experiences. Keep in mind that I am incarnated as a human here, and I will answer questions to the best of my ability. And if I don't know the answer, I'll let you know, or I'll look it up. I'll start doing the research myself. My background is in academic. I was a professor at a university for years. Prior to that, I did elementary education, and I am a lifelong student. Love learning new things and experiencing and sharing and teaching other people how to do things. So let's get started. All right, so this story that I wanted to share today was an experience I had last week. For those of you who do not know this already, I have a weekly meditation that I do. It's a free meditation. Anyone is welcome. The link that you use to get into this talk is the same link for the meditation. And it may or may not be in a time zone that works well for you, or my time might not line up with your time zone, is what I mean. And that's okay. It's just my free meditation that I do weekly with anyone who's wanting to come. It is 4 p.m. Thursdays. So today, 4 p.m. Thursdays, Hawaii Standard Time. So whatever time that is for you, you can reach out. I have a WhatsApp chat that's just specifically to announce that. I also will be announcing it in the Telegram chat if you're in that as well. So you don't need to be in both. I understand what it's like to have a lot of chats going at once and it gets confusing. So I'll put it in the Telegram chat as well as my WhatsApp chat, and you're all welcome to be there. So last week I did Blessings of the Energy Centers number 9, the Body Electric. It is probably my all-time favorite meditation of Dr. Joe Dispenza's. It's one where you do the entire meditation lying down. It's fairly long for those of you who are used to shorter meditations. It is almost 90 minutes, and it is well worth the experience if you ever have an opportunity to do it. If it's not already in your library. I do recommend that one. I'm a big fan of Blessings of the Energy Centers. I do one every single morning before I get started with anything to do in my day. I generally get up around 5 and get down on the cushion on the floor, my meditation cushion, and I do Blessings of the Energy Center before I even do anything else. So I did it with the group last week, number 9, and I had a pretty profound experience with the Blue Healers. I've been reaching out to them more and more saying, hey, I'm available for contact if you would like to, or if I am a good candidate for any type of communication with you. I'm always respectful and I ask for permission. And in addition to that, and this is information for you, make sure that you are checking in, with your physical body and saying to your human self, is this a comfortable thing for me? Because there are as many positives and negatives within interdimensional beings as there are with humans. So we always want to make sure that we have a good connection. Not all of them are my vibe, and they would agree as well. I've been turned down by conversations that I've reached out for. But generally, they're kind and respectful, compassionate, understanding, patient, particularly with humans. And I've found most of them are willing to have conversations. Sometimes I just catch them at a bad time. They also have other things they're doing. So I have in front of me printed out my experience. I use my voice recognizer. So most of you know that when you come back from that quantum field, it's a little like trying to remember a dream. Your thoughts will begin to dissolve almost the second you try to catch on to them. So I have found that on my Mac, I use my voice recognizer, and it's been super helpful in getting those things shut down. So while I was doing the Blessings of the Energy Centers, I was working my way up from the first energy center to the eighth as directed. And when I hit about the third energy center, I started feeling their presence in the room. And what that looked like for me was I was sort of popping in and popping out, a little like when you have a bad internet connection and you're on FaceTime or something, and the person sort of freezes and then they reappear, and then they freeze and then they reappear, and you hear a few words and then you don't hear anything. And it was a little like that. I was sort of like hitting the quantum and then moving back out, back and forth. And I sort of did this until I was there for the whole energetic experience. And it was happened for me right about the third energy center. And then definitely by the fourth energy center, I was in direct and full communication with them. There were three of them in the room, and they were the exact three that I saw when I was at the retreat. So I invited the same energy healers, the blue healers, to come and be with me. I affectionately didn't ask their names. I affectionately called them Alpha, Theta, and Delta because that's what came to my mind in the moment. So the three of them were around me, and I was specifically asking for healing. For those of you who don't know my story, I'll just be very brief. I used to have chronic migraines, which led to a lot of coexisting conditions, one of them being renal failure. So due to medication overuse. So I specifically have been working on healing that because after the retreat in June, I was migraine free. So yay, I could move on to something else. So I asked specifically for Alpha, who was the one I had been communicating most with at the retreat, if he would work specifically. I use he generally because they're gender neutral, so you may hear me say they as well. I asked Alpha to work on my kidney. Theta and Delta were at my head and my feet during this time, one of them holding my head, a lot of energy going in and working on my head, my brain, my nerves, and the other one holding my feet. So then the energy work began. And here I am, my physical body is still listening to the meditation. I'm still doing the in breath, the out breath, the in breath, the out breath, as directed by the meditation. So I had two things going on at once, right? I am doing the meditation, and at the same time, I'm connecting with the healers in the quantum field. So as they began to work on me, the one that I called Alpha asked me to roll over onto my side, and I did. And as I said, this meditation is entirely lying down, so it was very convenient. And he reached into my physical body and was sort of like trying to get a feel for what was happening with that kidney. And I could feel just this intense amount of energy. It was heat, it was tingling, it was, my whole body then felt really electrified. And for those of you who do a lot of shaking during meditations, like this, intense meditations, I normally do shake, but this time for some reason I didn't. So someone once asked me, does it ever stop? And I said, I don't know, but I'll tell you if it does. So I didn't have that intense shaking this time around. I just allowed the energy to flow. It felt intense, but I was thinking, okay, well, I'm doing all this breathing. I'll just keep breathing and allowing it. So Alpha had been working on the kidney, and there was energy from head and feet. And of course, I'm telescoping back and forth between listening to the meditation and doing as directed, and then also sort of tapping into what's happening with this healing process. So after I reached the heart energy center, I was asked to sit up. And as I was sitting up, I started doing sort of a rocking motion. My body was moved to do this rocking motion. Whether or not it was directed, physically directed by the blue healers, I really hadn't thought about that. It was certainly possible, but I felt myself sort of doing the breathing exercise and still leaning, even though everyone was supposed to be lying down. I was specifically told to sit up. So I just did what I was told by the energy healers, and I did that. So I at this point was I could feel myself, my brainwaves had completely shifted. So while I was cognizant of what was going on in the background with the meditation, I was definitely more in that healing space than I was in the meditation. So I knew that I had hit a certain brainwave level that allowed me to completely um, sink into the healing session itself that I had requested. Anya, did you have your eyes open during the beings with me? Yes, but I also had my face mask on, and for those of you who have the ones where you can open your eyes at the same time, it's got padding completely around it. It was from the source table. I made a donation and they gave me a face mask. So I highly recommend those types of eye masks that either have the cups where the padding is pushing the mask away from your face so you can open your eyes. I do prefer that when I'm doing the meditations. So in the process of doing the healing, the healers were communicating with each other. They communicate what I would call telepathically, although I think as humans, we erroneously believe that telepathy means that it comes out of the third eye and it's just this head thing. But it really is a full body communication. It comes from the entire being and it's just a transmission that you get. So I could hear them communicating with each other as I am doing the meditation as directed. And they had said, um, one had said to, well, Alpha had said to Theta, uh, you ask her. And I thought, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to roll with it. So there did come a time where I was asked. And after the fifth energy center, when I was at the fifth energy center, I was told to stand. And so I was standing now and I have my hands down and I'm tipped back. So for those of you who have been instructed by Dr. Joe Dispenza to like arch back during your meditations and put your head back slightly, it has to do with that cerebral spinal fluid kind of coming up the spine and activating the pineal gland. So if you don't know anything about that, I talk about it in one of my other videos. So I was in that breathing, in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath of the meditation. I was tipped back, my head was back, and I was being told by the healer specifically to push the breath out through the fifth energy center because it was very blocked. I could feel myself kind of choking a little bit, that sensation of like can't swallow very well, hard to breathe. And I was specifically instructed to not open my mouth. No idea what that was about. But I know it's significant because it has something to do with the combination between these two energy centers, not something here. I don't know exactly what that was. Maybe I'll get that information and hand it to you another day. So I was breathing out all the energy through here. Again, feeling lots of energy in my kidneys, also in my joints. Fascinating, but when I do healings, energy healings, often my joints will get a blast of healing. I must hold stuff in my joints, is what I was thinking. So I was breathing out this energy. And I can sense my body was actually generating the healing energy needed for the condition that I have. So I had a healer on each side of me, one behind me as I was standing, fifth energy center cleared, and then I moved into the sixth. From the sixth, the seventh, and the eighth, I followed the meditation. I couldn't feel my body at all. I was instructed to lie down again, which was probably the best course of action. I had reached that place where my physical body had no sensations anymore. I was completely awake. My mind was sharp and clear, and my whole body was just asleep. It was completely not even numb. I mean, I could have definitely tapped back in, and I didn't have any fear. I've had enough of these experiences that I generally don't go into a fear state. I go into that curiosity of like, hey, what's happening? And I hope I remember this when I come back to 3D reality. So it was at that time when we finished the eighth center that the question was asked. Theta asked if they could merge energy with me. I didn't know what that meant. And of course, I took a second where I checked in with my body, like, is this a creepy thing or is this like okay? And my body was like, yeah, this is totally fine. So we did an energy merging, which is essentially like literally as it sounds. two energy bodies merging together, whereby it was a full solid transmission. And of course, my mind got involved for a few seconds where it was like, what are the repercussions of this? What's going to happen in 3D when this all like shakes down? So, and I felt like it was probably 3 seconds, but I felt like it was an eternity that maybe I was wasting my time on thoughts like that because I'd already made the agreement that it was okay. So then I started sensing into the energy in the physical body of the being that I was, merging that energy with. And of course, I felt them doing the same, and I was like, "Go for it. I'm so not interesting, and I feel sorry that you have to deal with any of the thoughts going on in my head at any minute of any given day, because there's a lot happening up here." So there we were, and I was sensing into an unfamiliar experience, right? So I know the 3D body, I know how it feels, and the sense of that other being was very, very different. It was completely devoid of emotion, and it was such a relief being, the person that I am, to have an experience. What does it really feel like to have literally no emotions whatsoever? And it was very quiet. It was very calm. There were no thoughts going on in its head. And I was trying to sense in like, where are the organs? What's happening on the inside? What is the physical structure? I felt very scientific about it. I was doing kind of a body scan from the top down. I did sense that there was a brain stem, and what could be perceived as nerves. But other than that, there was nothing else that was familiar in that body that was similar to the human body. No organs, um, except eyes. There were eyes, and I'll tell you about that. But I was looking for a skeletal structure. I was like, how is this whole thing held together? It felt very confusing to me for a second. And then I realized that it was energy and frequency that was holding this thing together, and this being together. And it was like, in my mind, the only image I can come up with, because of course we're going to use our own filters to try to describe it and find categories in the brain to categorize it, um, was like DNA strands, the images that you see of DNA strands. So it sort of felt that way, like somehow their energy and frequency was holding the whole thing together. And it projected itself as a body, um, 10, 12 feet tall, bluish, white, luminous is the way it appears to me. Blue healer, that's what I call it. But then there were the eyes. I did focus, what does it look like to see through the eyes of this being? And what I experienced was vastly different than the human perception. Everything was black and white, is the way I would describe it. But it was more, there was so much more to it. So you could see heat signatures and energy waves and pretty much energy of everything. And it was like almost as if the eyes were the entire head. So when I felt like I was standing behind the eyes in this experience, that the eyes were perceiving everything all at once. And I imagine humans do that as well. We just have numerous filters through which we kind of contain this information. So that was very unique to the experience. So when we pulled apart, and the merge was no longer there, they were to the side of me again. As I said, alpha, theta, delta. And theta did an energy transfer. And at that point, I had so much of the experience of that energy of the 5D being that I saw it from 5D rather than 3D, which was pretty cool. I thought, oh, if I can get here once, I can come back again. So that was exciting. So I saw the energy transfer. And when the energy transferred, it looked like tiny tendrils were coming out of one and just sort of touching the others very gently, almost like butterfly wings, just this very gentle feel. And the transmission went, and you could see they were all in an internal moment, um, where they weren't focusing on me per se. And when the information reached um, the last being, Delta, this being that I perceived as being male, looked down to the region where the legs come together at the top. And I knew instantly what that meant. And I laughed a human laugh very loudly, and they all looked at me. And I projected genitalia, and specifically the word vagina, and blurted out with my human mouth before I could stop myself, true to my own nature. Good luck with that. And then the whole thing just vanished. And I was still laughing. And it was the end of the meditation. I reconvened with my group. And, you know, when it was over, I sat down at my computer and immediately started with the voice recognizer to recall the experience and get it into a document so that I could go back and then, you know, add in details. But it was very funny that last moment, and I realized that I had inadvertently, of course, disconnected from 5D back into 3D by having a 3D moment. And it was totally fine. It was the end of the meditation. I had a group I was attending to, so I would have done it anyway. But that was just one experience that I've had. There have been numerous, and I've left out a lot of details. When you read my book that'll be published later this year, I'll have all the details from it as well. Otherwise, we'd be here all day. Me telling you the story, every little detail. So I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. I see there are a few in the chat. You can pop more in there if you'd like. Let's see if I missed one from earlier. Curious about astral projection and remote viewing. Yes, I have a whole talk I'm going to do about remote viewing. So Lori, just hang on. I will talk about both of those things in another talk. And remote viewing and astral projection are different, but they have a little bit of crossover. So we'll talk about that. And remote viewing is often, if you don't know that term, it's often used with military stuff. It's kind of more their jam. Okay, Karen, how do you realize beings are in the room? First, I can sense them with my physical body, perceptually. I have very, very thin filters between the worlds. I always have, very sensitive person. HSP, I've heard of highly sensitive people. There are books about that. As I have done more and more meditation, and specifically that meditation I did this morning, Empowering the Power Within, where I like to say, Dr. Joe talks about in like boosting the strength of your immune system with your inner army. Those are the exact words he uses. It started out for me that it was just physical, but with that meditation, I also noticed that it increased my energy field, the strength of my energy field. So I'm not as susceptible to dark energies, and my intuition is louder because my energy isn't sort of leaking out in all directions. So when I talk about empowering the power within meditation, I recommend it for a lot of people who have issues with taking on negative energies. And I call it the one with the bagpipes, because when it goes to the third energy center, it sounds like bagpipes to me for some reason. So if I ever say do the bagpipe meditation, that's the one I'm talking about. So I'm sensing with my physical body, as we know, the energy centers, we have 1 through 8, there are myriad hands, the feet, myriad on the body of energy centers. That is where the perceptual sensations are coming in. And then my visual starts to kick in. I do have the ability to see the unseen, but generally when I go into the 5th dimension, I have on an eye mask and I have my eyes wide open and I'm looking into the black. That works best for me. Otherwise, I have a highly active mind. If I have my eyes open in 3D, I get distracted by other things. When the image was flickering and they were in and out, I have always silhouettes about not clear sight. Yes. Okay, so that is how it happens for me. And I love this question, Karen. Thank you. So people ask, how do I know and how do I see and what do I trust? You're going to have to trust yourself. And it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to be safe. It's okay to be, to have a healthy amount of curiosity about the signs that you're getting. And yes, when I first started as an adult, I should say, as a child, I didn't have those filters. I just saw the unseen world and it was okay until it turned off based on programming, and we're told not to see things that are unseen, at least in my generation. I didn't tell my kids that. I told them the exact opposite. So it's changing in the world. But as an adult, and if you're just now trying to perceive the unseen world, allow it to flicker in and out. That's what's going to happen. Or you'll see it out of the corner of your eye, and then you'll question yourself. You're like, oh, that was just my imagination. But many people who are just starting out trying to see the unseen world will see ghosts, what I call ghosts, or I say dead people. You'll see the dead people because there are many humans who do not transition well. I shouldn't say many. It's really not that many. If you look at the number of people on the planet and all that, it's not that many. But if there are ghosts hanging around, a lot of times people will start seeing the ghosts first. So, because there's a familiar energy pattern, right? You are seeing an unseen human energy. And so that will be the most accessible for a lot of people when they're going to start seeing the unseen world. Just as an FYI, a lot of the things you hear about ghosts are true, and then some of them are not. And whatever's true for you is great. I will never, ever say that it has to be my way. We have myriad filters here with our human experience, culture, DNA, lifetimes that we've had. And for some of us, it's thousands and thousands of them. There are filters we have. Language is part of culture. And our brains are wired specific ways. So allow your story to be different than mine. I'll share with you my story, and maybe a lot of that will resonate with you. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. It's like, this is your journey, and I want you all to, we're here normalizing this conversation. So I want you all to be empowered and understand that your story, your version of seeing or experiencing fifth dimensional beings can be your own. And I highly encourage it to be that way. So as the image is flickering in and out, even in your meditations, you'll find that as we bounce into our heads in meditation and we're thinking grocery list, do I have to pick up my kids? Oh my gosh, did I forget to tell so-and-so something? Did I do this? Did I do that? It's this kind of like, it's like what is it? Like an accordion, squeezing and you're in and you're out. And then eventually you'll feel yourself sink in. Sometimes for me, and Dr. Joe has said this at the retreat as well, sometimes you'll find that it's the last 5 minutes of the meditation. And it's better to have, as I read in the chat recently, and I heard Dr. Joe say this, sometimes it's better to have 5 great minutes of meditation where you're super connected than an hour of meditation where you're just in your head the entire time. So, be gentle and kind with yourself. And I dialogue with my head. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need this right now. Thank you, but no, thank you. I ask for help from the angels, for those of you who are angel people, or spirit guides, or whatever it is that's your thing, to please take my thoughts away for a little while. And a lot of times that'll work for me. Okay, I hope I answered that question, Karen, thoroughly enough. You said, I was told, how do you communicate? Do you hear a voice? Again, it's that full body communication. It's almost a sensation more than it is a voice, but a lot of times my human body will interpret it as a thought in my head. But if I am not in a position where, or in a place in a meditation where I am not in my mind and I'm in that full body experience where the brain waves have shifted and I've let go of my head, then it'll be a full body transmission. I'll often feel it in the belly area. The energy will come in there, kind of through my third chakra, or even through the heart. It really just depends what the message is. So yeah, I start in that. Imagine that you have a communication system as you're sitting in meditation, and sense and feel what that's like in your meditations, particularly when you feel like you're getting a little bit more out of your head and out of your body. Just for the information, and then do allow yourself to have that meditative space where you're just in the void. So it's a little bit of both. We have our minds going, but it's great to get into that, into the void, into the quantum, into nothingness. That's where we have that new experience. Okay, you told in the chat that you fainted for 9 minutes. How did you realize it was 9 minutes? My Apple Watch. That's how. Yeah, sometimes I'm checking, I feel myself going under. I also know the meditations so well that if I come back at a certain point, I will remember it, and I remember the sound or the words where I went out. So with this particular time, I actually checked the meditation and I timed it from the last moment I remember until the time I remember coming to. So I used the tracker on the meditation. Missed the name of the meditation. Empowering the Power Within. It's by Dr. Joe Dispenza. The bagpipes. You'll never not be able to hear the bagpipes. So when you get to the third energy center and that it switches into, you know, talking about the bagpipes. Karen, yes, highly sensitive. Yes, many of us are. Many of us are. And if you notice, many highly sensitive people have a similar constitution. For those of you who are into homeopathy, or just can read energy fields, you'll notice that highly sensitive people tend to have, it doesn't matter where you're from in the world, have a similar constitution. Feel sensations like something caresses my face, wind. Yeah, that's all sounds totally normal to me, Karen. Karen says, I feel sensations like something caresses my face. I have wind. So you have an affinity for wind, that element. Is that what you mean? I think so. If not, you can share more. I've never black, only color lucid and lights and lots of light. Yeah, and I always recommend if you have energies around you, you want to know more about it, ask, because the answers are there. And I find that answers come more easily if I'm willing to just let it be what it is. You know, it could be very weird. No questions, be like, okay, I just heard a jumble of words that don't make any sense to me, but it'll eventually, your brain will sort it out. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'd say there's more than 5 dimensions as well. So how I like to describe it is just when you leave 3D, know that you're not in 3D anymore. Once you're out of 3D, yay, just that 3D. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. All right, next question. Anya, if you reincarnate sometime in the next 70 years, could you decide to be a being or an angel, or do you have a certain tribe you belong to? Oftentimes, when you're in the cycle of birth and death as a human, you are not given choice. Although that is changing, my experience is that you need to have a certain level of awareness and vibrational frequency in the death process in order to make choices about where you go next. And I know that from my most previous lifetime, the one where I was a monk in Tibet. And we were chanting to transmute the karma of the world, told that story in another video. And in that process, we were also raising our awareness so that we could choose the next incarnation. So for those of you who haven't done much study about Tibetan lamas or how they leave information behind for their human people who are still alive, to find them in their next incarnation, to educate them into their lineage once again, because there is a little bit of a memory loss that happens even for them, but they get to choose where they're reborn. So I think that question, Anya, is an excellent one. It's a lot about that conscious dying process. And there are initiatives out there. I have a friend who's been leading a conscious dying group for like the last 15 years. If you want that information, I'll certainly go look for it. And just shoot me a DM and I'll send it there, or put it in the chat and it'll be there for everybody. Same thing for if you wanted recommendations for healers. Instead of just putting it in the group chat, which I already did, you can DM me, because sometimes people lose the things in the group chat, and that's okay. You can always ask again. Missed the name of the meditation. Yes, empowering the power within. Yeah, okay, so that's all the questions for today. If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Happy to bring up other questions. I do have about 20 more minutes, and if there aren't any other questions, I can go on to the ones that people have given me in chat space that I maybe aren't related, and I'll also do individual talks about things. Okay, so I don't see any other chats coming in. So I'm going to talk about the difference between portals and the quantum field. So I talk about portals and how I clear and close portals that are coming in into my body, and that recently I said in the chat space that when I closed the portals this last weekend, So I was telling you about this experience with the blue healers that happened last Thursday. Every Sunday I do a clearing on myself, roughly Sunday. Every week I do a clearing on myself, a professional clearing. And there, when I did that, I closed all the portals, sealed all the portals. And what that did was in addition to that, I clear ET energies. So I specifically ask for negative ET energies, but I sometimes will just say all ET energies. If I want some more silence in my life, I block out all the dead people, clear all that. I have a whole list of things I can clear. So over the weekend, I did that clearing, and then I couldn't access the blue healers on Monday, and I was like, what happened? It's very quiet here. There's something I couldn't sense. And so I then reached out and they said, hey, every time you close that portal between your world and us, we can't access you either. So I learned that I need to be more specific when I'm doing my clearing. So I have specific things that I do based on a course that I took for professional clearing. And I can do it on other people. I generally just do it on myself and my family. But I learned that you have to be super duper specific. And I knew this from my training, but this is even more so about exactly who you want to allow access to your energy field. So portals can be opened either directly or indirectly. We can open portals to any of the dimensions, and there are as many dimensions probably as you can imagine. But generally, people talk about 12, 13, 14. I go up to about 16. And the fifth dimension is one that is often communicated in terms of these healers, but they just keep on going, the dimensions. And you can have portals that are opened either inadvertently by yourself. You'll be reaching out for something and it'll open a portal. Or you'll have a portal that is opened from the other side. As I said, there are fortuitous energies in the various dimensions that may want to have a communication with you, and it's maybe something that you don't want. So having those portals closed is totally okay. And most people don't know about them. There are also energy cords that come in from various places. So we have benevolent beings in the dimensions, and then we have other things that are kind of like they may be naive or maybe they know what they're doing. But anyway, closing off those portals is a good thing. Cutting those energetic cords, that's a good thing. And then allowing the portals that you want to be open for communication with your intention. Many people have clearing processes they do. If you want to know specifically about mine, what I use, just DM me and we will have a chat in that space. It's proprietary information that belongs to the healer I learned it from. So I will speak from that lens, and I will give that information if you wanted to do that training program yourself. It's about $6,000. It's a year-long program. I just checked the site to see. So whenever you're watching this, make sure you check and verify the information. You can go there. I do recommend that training if you're in the market for doing something like that. It is excellent and it is highly effective. I have done other healing work or other clearing work that just wasn't as effective for me, and being highly sensitive, I just threw money at it basically, and it was well worth the investment in the year of my time and the intensive studies that I did for it. So there's portals. It's basically an energy channel that's opened up for communication. The quantum field, however, is where you're going into nothingness, right? So if you want to think of it this way, a portal is there's information there. Whereas going into the quantum, you are wanting to go into the void for a new experience and find new information. Sounds like a telephone line almost in this context. In this context, there's a little more to it, but I'm going to try to keep it simple. One's like a telephone line that's open or it's closed, and the other one is going into the experience of everything and nothing at the same time, the quantum. And we can throw intentions into the quantum and see what comes back. But again, you throw an intention into the quantum. Every time you meditate, you throw an intention into the quantum. And a lot of times for us, it's health, right? Synchronizing your energy to health, synchronizing your energy to abundance, synchronizing your energy to heart, or love, right? Health, wealth, relationships. These are the three big things humans love to dance around with. It makes our world so fun. Okay, hopefully that is clear. How do we access previous talks? Lori, thanks for the question. So I am a little on the low tech side, and there are a few things that I need to take out of the talks. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. So I'm using CapCut, and I'm also trying to use media editing tool in Apple. So iMovie. If anyone has any skills there and you just want to help me for 20 minutes, figure it out, then I'll process through that stuff fast. But otherwise, I've been trying to figure it out on my own, and I'm having limited success with that. So I've been watching YouTube videos and trying to get that done. But what'll happen is I'll learn how to do that. I'll have them edited. They'll pop onto the YouTube channel that I already have created, and all of them will show up probably right about the same time. So just be patient with me. And like I said, if anyone has any tech skills whatsoever with editing video, and it's not like major editing, I'm talking about just cutting out portions where maybe the line went kind of quiet, or at the end where I'm waffling on and I just want to take that out of there so people don't have to listen to it. Or anything at the beginning that doesn't belong. That's all. Cutting out beginning, end, and something in the middle. So I'm working on that. And I have a YouTube channel that I'll put them on. Okay, Anya, sometimes I feel wind at my forehead around my feet, and sometimes I feel someone to my left thumb. Okay, interesting. Rarely my right thumb. Any thoughts about that? So, Anya, I'm going to actually say that anytime I feel wind or cold energy around me, I'm always a little suspicious that it may be a disembodied human. So someone who's kind of trapped between worlds. This is their type of vibe, what you're talking about. It may or may not be. You'll have to explore and investigate on your own. This is just a suspicion of mine based on what you're saying, is that they will kind of do these things like come sit on your bed, and then suddenly you'll see them and they will really get activated once you acknowledge their presence. Because then they're like, oh, you can see me. I'm so bored. I want to just figure out what you're up to and try talking to you. And then it's a whole conversation. And I did tell a story about that in one of the other talk stories I did, where I had a dead person kind of follow me around in Portland, Oregon. And she was sitting on the bed with me, and I was like, okay. But yeah, and they'll touch you sometimes. And if you haven't seen the show Ghosts that originally came out BBC, I think in Canada, and then it was recreated in the United States, it's very entertaining. It's super campy. It is, but there are they bring in some funny information about ghosts, and some of it's accurate and some of it's just outlandish. But yeah, I think it's always good to have a sense of humor around this stuff too. Try to not see it as being negative. I believe that we live in a benign universe that conspires on our behalf. So if we have a positive attitude, we pull positive energy in, and if we live in the fear space, then we'll bring in things to mirror that as well. Which is not that I don't have fears. Absolutely, I do. And yeah, I just keep working with my human side and all those things, just like everyone else. I don't know that there's actually a destination in the human body where you're done with all of that. So I have learned to just sink into, hey, I'm struggling with this today, or oh, I'm feeling a ton of love today, or or whatever it is. Could be every minute. Just kind of flow with the human thing. So check in with yourself, Anya, and see if that is feeling like a resonance, that it might be someone there. And then you can also find a way to have them exit your entire world. Disembodied humans. There are lots of them. They're around. If you live in a climate that's kind of gray, wet, damp, cloudy, any of that, I find they tend to cool up in those areas more than say like Arizona, where it's hot and dry, and for some reason, I don't understand why, but I found way more ghosts in Portland, Oregon than I ever did in the 30 years I lived in Arizona. So I just wondered if climate maybe was more fortuitous for them. Yeah. Lori, okay, I wish you had those skills. I had those skills to help you. Oh, thank you. Would you please put your YouTube link in the chat? Yes, I will. Absolutely. Give us, yes. And the WhatsApp number? Sure. Yeah, I'll put the WhatsApp. Lori, you're in Portland. Awesome. I love Portland. I tried to move there once, but it didn't work out that way. I got a job. I moved to Portland from Arizona, and within 30 days, I got a job in Phoenix, and I had to move back. So it was a really quick turnaround. So many ghosts. Yeah, but my purpose there was very clear in Portland, Oregon. There was a ghost who had passed away from cancer, leaving her husband with two small daughters, two young daughters, and it had been a year. And so she was hounding me to go talk to him and tell him to move on because she didn't want her daughters to grow up without a mother. And that was a really interesting experience of trying to figure out how do you knock on someone's door and say that, right? And when I finally did communicate the experience to him, he was like, "Oh, that sounds just like her. I can't believe you didn't come sooner." And I was like, so that was great. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I love the ghost thing. It was fun. Learned a lesson on that though too. It's like just shut the door. You know, I didn't need to be a part of that. Well, it was a blessing. I felt very grateful for the experience, and I'm sure he did too. He was married within a year, by the way. He, in earnest, went out looking for someone who would be a great match for him and his children. Yeah, here, I'm going to give you my WhatsApp number now. I'll just put it in the group for those of you who are not in the US. There you go. It's also my cell number. It's public, it's on my website, so it's not like people aren't going to reach out to me. It's a business number, so you can reach out to me in WhatsApp. And my YouTube link I will put in the Telegram app, and I'll also put it in the WhatsApp chat for those of you who are coming from there, because I do post all of this in both places, particularly meditation. Yeah. So thank you all for being here. If you have any other questions, pop it in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today, and I will have another talk. Again, it's going to be last minute. I do own 3 companies. I'm the CEO of my own 3 companies. It's a group, and I'm very busy, and I love doing this. So I am always thrilled to come and chat with you guys. That's why I do it so early in the morning or in the evenings. And soon or eventually, I imagine I'll just be doing something like this for mine. But I also love helping people. We own medical clinics, so chiropractic, as a matter of fact. Hello, Dr. Joe. Okay, so the number didn't show up. Oh, geez, did I do a direct? I'm sorry, Lori, I think I did a direct message. Thank you for reaching out. Sometimes, like I said, there we go. There we go. There's a number for everybody. You can see it. Great. And this evening, I haven't decided which meditation we're doing this evening. I'll decide in the next 10 minutes and I'll put it in the chat. It will not be Empowering the Power Within. I won't repeat it today. And it probably won't be a Blessings of the Energy Centers. I'm thinking of synchronizing your energy this evening. I think we'll do that one. It's about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, depending on which one I choose. And again, thank you all for being here. Sending you tons and tons of love. Aloha. Do the hearts. Let's see if they pop up this time. Magic. Donnie.